Hello, everyone. This is Simon Tupman here with the May 2023 edition of Law Chat, coming to you this evening from Auckland, New Zealand, and also from Spain. And I'm pleased to say this Law Chat is again sponsored by Moore Markham's, accountants and business advisors specializing in offering financial services to the legal services sector. My guest this evening, or this morning, depending where in the world you might be, joins us from Spain, from his home in Spain, and that is Dan Warburton. Dan, welcome.
Thank you. It's really great to be here.
It's lovely to see you. And just a few words of introduction about Dan. Dan is a speaker and an author. He started off his life, I guess, like many of us, washing dishes, if I can put it that way. But as an aspiring entrepreneur, he's probably seen it all, from the insides of Gatwick Airport to shop interior design to 24-hour drainage and plumbing services. But all of this has led him to a career which now focuses exclusively on law firms and law firm owners. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, it's a fascinating story, and I think we should hear it from the horse's mouth. So before we get into tonight's topic on the art of profitable delegation, tell us how you got here.
Well, what happened was I soon discovered that the only way to create a truly fulfilling lifestyle was to be your own boss, not have anyone tell you when you can and can't go on holiday, and have unlimited ability in how much you can earn. So after washing dishes and working on building sites and all of that, I set up my first business. And it was involved knocking on doors, offering window cleaning, car washing, all these things. And then bit by bit, it was my handyman skills that paved the way forwards. And then I built that from me to a team of 8 called Team Super. And in the background, I'd been attending a lot of leadership programs and management in London. In fact, over 8 years of programs, nearly 200 courses I've completed, between books to full-on one-on-one. These programs, we'd have 30 of us start at the beginning of the year, and I was one of 6 still at the end. That's how grueling they were. And so my businesses still weren't fulfilling me. I was still working crazy hours and not earning the level of money that I wanted to. And in the end, that handyman business called Team Super, I grew it too fast, too quick, and had to fold it. And then what happened was, I thought, well, how can I build a team that are loyal and reliable? And then I met somebody in Brighton, where I was, who had a 24-hour emergency plumbing drainage business. And he said, Dan, you should not be managing people. You shouldn't be doing any of that. You're great at getting the phone ringing, and getting people to commit to the work. So why don't you go and do that, build your own brand, and then we'll carry out everything on the back end. And all of a sudden, literally overnight, I had a team of 12 people that were all organized, ready to go. And so I just placed adverts in magazines, 24-hour emergency drainage services. And I discovered that I could be anywhere whilst I run that. I traveled to Scotland, Ireland, and then I realized I could be snowboarding. And I'd be on the chairlifts, with this beautiful scenery. Hello, 247 drainage, how can I help you? And then all I need to say is, yes, we can do that. It'd be £150 and we'll be there in 1 hour. And that was it. And then I text the details to my colleague. The phone kept ringing and ringing and ringing constantly. And I started to live this amazing lifestyle. I could travel everywhere. I had teams of people that were working for me in the UK and handling everything. And so my father said, how are you doing this? So my father became one of my first clients. And I ended up mentoring him to grow his business internationally. And then this culminated in me now having worked with over 1,000 entrepreneurs one-on-one. And the reason why I've got into law was because 5 years ago, I did an advanced marketing program. And they said, look at who your ideal client is. Like, look for patterns in who they are. So I looked at the clients who became the most successful, who earned the most money and had the greatest joyous results out of working with me. And most of them were from the legal sector. So then that's where I realized, right, this is what I've got to commit to. And I've discovered it's because in the legal sector, they have a very academic, training, and they don't have much of a leadership training. And so with that, I've found myself like a kid in a sweet shop, because this is all I do. It's how do you empower somebody to take actions and to achieve and do things that they wouldn't do had you not had that conversation with them. And the whole art of that. And then the advanced level is how do you cause leaders to cause other leaders as such.
So tell us, most of your work, as I understand it, is in Europe. Is that correct? And the Far
Yes,
East as well.
mainly focused in the UK, but I keep being referred to people in the USA. So I have a few USA clients as well.
And so it's interesting because how do they receive you? Because as someone who hasn't had a background in law, I mean, I personally think it's really refreshing because you bring those external perspectives. So do they embrace you with open arms?
They do when I say that many of my clients have now hit over 500,000 extra profit in less than 12 months and reducing their hours from often over 100 to less than 50. And I've got track records, proofs, screenshots, balance sheets from their firms. And then when they see that, they go, oh, okay. You know,
yeah.
The proof's in the pudding, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, look, that's great. So let's get into tonight's topic, because I certainly know from my experience that there are a lot of really good lawyers out there who still have trouble delegating today. And perhaps, you know, they would say, look, it's quicker if I do it myself. Perhaps they just fear passing on the file because they might be redundant and they don't know quite what to do with the extra time, all those sort of things. Tell me about your experiences that sort of gravitated you towards this issue of delegation. Tell us about your experiences and what you see as being perhaps some of the causes of under delegation.
Yeah, let me give you an example. So one of my USA clients, law firm partner of 2, leading a law firm with 8 people in it, he was receiving about 250 text messages a day from his team that kept asking him, how do I do this? Where's this file? How do I manage this? What do I do with this? And so on and so on. And what he would do is he would just answer those messages, and he would leave himself open and available at all times to help his team do the work, whilst he knows himself as the highest fee earner. In other words, he charges the most in the firm. And thus, the main reason why his firm is so profitable to him is because he keeps doing a lot of fee earning work. So he's trying to do a lot of the fee earning work whilst he's being bombarded with lots of other people wanting questions on how to do things, but never quite finding the time to really properly serve them or support them to become real assets, financial assets to the firm. And that's very common. And he was working, over 100 hours before we started working together.
So how did you help him?
So the foundation, above all, and this is the biggest tip I can give to you if you're watching this and you're a law firm owner or partner, the first thing is schedule regular one-on-one calls with the key team members and make that a repeatable, consistent thing each week. And then what you say is, unless necessary, if you have to, okay, but unless necessary, do not contact me outside of this 1 hour, one-on-one. And what happened was, certainly with this client, he noticed that his text messages went from 250 a day to about 10 a day in about 2 weeks. And then in that 1 hour session, what it does is it gives the law firm owner or partner the opportunity to be really fully present with that employee, to find out, what do they want to succeed at? Why are they in the law firm? What challenges do they have in achieving those targets? And then the law firm owner can give them the support, can give them the training to achieve those elevated results. And then what I've noticed happens is, as long as that isn't given to them as advice, because that's the mistake that most law firm owners make, as my client did, he was advising, not leading. So in other words, whenever any of them had a question, they just give them the answer or just text them what they need. And the employees become completely dependent on them for the next answer to the next question. Instead, in those one-on-ones, ask them, okay, well done for bringing this to me. What do you think the solution is? What else could you do? And in doing that, it causes the employees to start to cognitively come up with the solutions themselves. When they do that, the answer stays with them. They're much less likely to repeat that mistake again. And so if that way of leading is applied to guiding each employee to finding the solution themselves, you solve every problem, every challenge, one by one, and bit by bit. The law firm owner is then able to delegate away everything that's weighing down on their shoulders onto the employees, then give them the support structure to ensure they succeed at that. And in turn, as my client, their hours start to come down quite quickly whilst their profits start to greatly rise.
So it sounds very much like a discipline that you are instilling that hasn't been there before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is never taught. It's like most law firm owners think, well, if my employee needs me, I need to give them the answer straight away to have things move forwards. But in doing that, they leave themselves completely overwhelmed and the bottleneck of the workload, which means that the firm continues to be reliant on them for it to be profitable, but they can only be so profitable because there's only one of them. They can only work on one item of work at one time. Whereas if they have a team of 3, say, working at once, they could be earning so much more and not doing any fee earning work.
Is your approach more applicable to some markets compared with others? So say, for example, you might come across some highly paid litigators who'd say, well, that would never work for me because, the client wants me and I'm the only one who can wrap my mind around this case. Or do you find that right across the board, it's possible for people to adapt far better approaches to delegating?
I'd say right across the board, the only thing that's different is the length of time that it takes to have somebody to get up to speed and take over that workload. Yeah. If somebody's, working with very complex kinds of law and they feel that they don't have people around them that are as qualified, the best thing they can do is look for a senior member. And this is the other tip. Don't look at employing juniors because they take up a lot of resources. Certainly when you're looking to grow a firm, have a firm that's based on 2-3 senior fee earners first before then employing juniors, so that then you've got the other fee earners to train the juniors. But then if somebody's dealing with very complex forms of law, they can have a senior member work with them that understands the same law, but then they can have them shadow them in everything that they do. Spend a lot of time looking at their processes. And in that one-on-one, they can study the law firm owner's workflow, list it out, and then work out which bits of these can the other members start taking on. And by doing that practice, the practice of defining what needs to be done by somebody else, making a clear request of them to take it on. And that's another tip. A clear request has 2 elements to it. What do you want doing exactly, and a time frame? If it doesn't have a description of exactly what you want doing or a time frame applied to it, that's not a request, and you can never rely on a team to have it handled. So then by making clear request of exactly what you want doing and by when, bit by bit, that becomes a practice and a skill that it's perpetual. You get faster and better at it as it goes.
You've just prompted my memory there, in that years ago, after I stopped practicing criminal defence law, I went to work for a management consultancy in an advertising agency in London. So I found myself doing work of an entirely different nature. And I remember my boss at that stage called me into his room and he wanted me to carry out a bit of research. And he used a certain amount of jargon in his request. And I went back to my room and I didn't challenge him enough. And I thought I'd kind of understood what he wanted me to do, but in fact I didn't. And I paced around my room for about 5-10 minutes. And I thought, no, I haven't got it. And I went back and I said, can you run that past me again, basically? And some young people might have been a bit concerned about making their boss a bit angry, like, am I dealing with some complete idiot here? But he just said, look, don't worry about it, Simon, absolutely right. My fault, I didn't explain it clearly to you. And he ran through it, like the 101 version for me. And I said, oh yeah, now I get it, thank you, that's fine. And sometimes I just find, the art of delegation is often just being clear and explaining as if you're talking to a 15-year-old.
That's it. And it's about agreeing with that person you made the request of on what they're going to do after you've made the request.
Yeah, it sounds simple.
It sounds simple, absolutely. But it's rarely done. And I think the reason for that is, as a law firm owner, they put themselves under great pressure. They feel they need to know everything, have all the answers, be the ultimate superhuman being, that knows everything. And they can never say, I don't understand, or I don't get it. And then they create this environment where nobody else can do the same. So then everybody's walking around with this front of, a mission to look good above all and everything else, instead of being committed and loyal to the mission that they have together. And so all of that needs handling and solving first before communication can flow effectively and become profitable.
Dan, we've got a few people watching today, and sometimes on Law Chat, people send through a question on the chat button. So if there is anyone watching live this evening who wants to send a message or a question to Dan, you're happy to take any?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Sure. Look, this is, I mean, it's always interesting to talk about this topic. Of course, it's not a new topic. 30 years ago, David Maister wrote in his book, Managing the Professional Service Firm, about systematic under-delegation in law firms, citing the causes as being often the pressures placed on partners to bill individually rather than as to lead a team, a lack of incentive, if you like, to reduce the cost of delivery with each assignment, a reluctance to invest time because they're working on short-term rather than long-term, and possibly that fear of becoming redundant, like, well, I'm holding on to this work because I'm busy, but if I give this work to a junior, then what am I going to, my figures go down, and what am I going to say at the next partners meeting? In your experience, Dan, do you find that those causes are still prevalent in the fields in which you operate?
Yeah, it's just a missing understanding of what becomes possible. For instance, just for hindsight, let's say a senior lawyer costs $100 an hour and you bill them out at $300, then you're earning $200 for that 1 hour they work whilst you're not doing any fee earning work. If you have two working that hour for the same cost, they cost you 200, you're making 400, income into the firm, and so on and so on. And so when you look at the math that way, you're able to handle so much larger volumes of work to satisfy and impact the lives of so many more people when the team handles it instead of you. And then the next thing is, well, yeah, but people don't understand what I do. And what I'd say is trust that and honor that and don't go against it. It's more than likely they don't know how to do what it is that you do. But if you put in the right structures, you can get them up to speed. In other words, regular one-on-one calls where they give you their questions, and then through not advising but leading, you have them find the solutions. But then what you do is you have another regular time that you schedule in for reviewing work. So when you make a request of work to be carried out by an individual in your team, let's say your client needs it on a Thursday, 12 p.m., you make a request that it's delivered to you by 12 p.m. Wednesday. That gives you enough time to review it, mark it up, and then make amendments and send it on to the client, or send it back to the fee earner to make the amendments before you then deliver it to the client. When you do this, you create a gate of safety where nothing gets released to any client unless it's past your high diligence as such. And when you do that, it gives you peace of mind that you can see the quality of every piece of work before it leaves. But the great thing is about doing that is if you keep the version that you marked up before you amended it, when you then have the next one-on-one with that individual, you can say, the work you're doing is really great, and I just want to go over this because I think you can be even better at doing what you do. Can we have a look at what I've marked out and see what you suggest? And at that point, say, okay, so here, second verse, a couple of lines here, I've underlined that. Why do you think I've underlined that? So instead of advising them and telling them, have them read it and tell you the answer. When they then get it, they won't make that mistake again. By the time you go through all the red marks on that and they've found the solution to all of them, they're not going to repeat half of them by the next week. And then you end up with high-performing fee earners. And if you have them all committed to earning 100 hours or billing at least 100 hours a month, you're off to the races, and you can start earning extraordinary money whilst having the peace of mind that everything is being done effectively.
So that sounds like a real interpersonal skill as well. There's often temptation to give advice rather than to ask the questions, and almost like the Socratic method of learning, if you like, saying, let them come up with the answer. Do you find that is a skill, that's a skill that you coach people in, presumably?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that's not natural is sitting down with an employee for a whole hour when you've got all the chaos and the firm and the clients and everything else going on around you. You need to become completely 100% focused to that one individual. What that does is it causes them to become very loyal to you. They feel very supported, respected, and they will jump as high as you ask them to when you need to. And in doing that, what the law firm owner is learning is that the long-term and ultimate success for their money in their own bank and also creating an extraordinary firm is through that dedicated one-on-one time with key individuals. Of course, the trick isn't don't have one-on-ones with everybody in the firm, put juniors underneath the key individuals, and then you just have the weekly one-on-one or bi-weekly one-on-one with the key individuals. And then perhaps on top of that, alongside reviewing, you also have once a week a team call where everybody dials in. And that's the way that the juniors get to feed off your energy, your insights and conversations that you have with the more senior members.
And presumably this isn't just for law firm owners, but say, for example, non-equity partners or salaried partners, as some refer to them, who happen to be leading teams or need to supervise people. This is a skill that would benefit them hugely.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've just always aspired to being a leader in my own life and leading teams of people. So that's why I really connect with the owners as such. But I've noticed that when they transform their lives through these skills, that it showers down through everybody, and then it impacts the lives of everybody and the families of the employees as well.
And presumably those people who are on the receiving end of having files passed on to them will always remember the style in which their mentor, delegated work to them. I mean, like I recounted that story to you just a few moments ago, and I guess it becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way that people learn from their mentors, and we always remember a bad boss we had, but to have someone who did it so well in the way that you've articulated presumably helps to groom them in the future when the time comes for them to delegate.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's not about being soft or gentle. It's about being absolutely straight and fully expressed. Don't hold anything back and never step over anything. If you see a mannerism or something you don't appreciate in your business and it isn't how you want, don't step over it, because that's the beginning of a cumulative error. And if you step over one thing, what says you're not going to step over the next thing and not address it? And of course, it can then become overwhelming. It's like, well, my God, I haven't got things running anywhere near like they should be here. One thing at a time. As you go through the week and you see an individual or an employee not performing to the level they should, note it down on what they did, save it for the one-on-one, and then hold them to account on it. And through doing that, you just constantly elevate their performance. And the other thing is people think, well, isn't it rude to ask somebody to do something? Like, should I say please? No, don't say please. Just say, John, email's just come in from Sandy. There's a second paragraph there. Can you take that out, rewrite it so it makes sense for the other people involved, and send it to me? And then if you don't feel comfortable by saying by 2 p.m., say to them, by when can you get that to me? And then have them give you a time. Great. So by 2 p.m., you're going to have that with me. Thanks so much. That's it.
Yeah.
And what I find is that my clients, employees, start to really love being spoken to with such clarity. And the reason is because when we ask somebody to do something, what we're doing is we're acknowledging, I trust you, I believe in you, I see your greatness in this. And so actually making a request of somebody is also a great acknowledgement of them and their abilities.
And tell me, I don't know if from your experience whether you find the older generation more in need of delegation skills. I mean, there's the old phrase that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Do you find that the younger people are more receptive to learning the skills of being an effective delegator? Or do you find that older generation is still open to it?
I would say that equally, from young to old, they have their ways of doing things. They're protective over the way things are. They think, I've got this handled, I know what I'm doing, like I'm doing okay, I just need to keep going. And that's fine. And I'm sure I'm the same. When I get offered mentoring and things like that, I'm thinking, I don't need this. And of course, I'm jumping back into the old thing of, I know what I know, but the fact is I don't know what it is that I don't know always. And the time that people become open to learning this is when they're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. When they're burnt out, they're exhausted, they've tried different things and they just don't feel fulfilled. They're still having to be the main fee earners. They've got a team of people that are not properly profitable to the firm. They can't go on holiday without a laptop. They don't see enough of their wife and their kids, and they're drinking and eating a bit too much. gets to that point, they find out about me and what I do. And often in the first call, some of them become a bit teary because they've just had enough and they just want transformation. They've worked so hard to build something so great, and they're left with either of two options. Do I continue burning myself out into the day that I die and keep doing what I'm doing day in and day out? Or do I walk away from a business that I've spent years to build and a reputation to get it to what it is now? And they're left with either of those two options. And so what I do is enable them through understanding communication and leadership to open what's like an invisible door. It's right in front of them, but they can't see it. But when they get this, it opens an invisible door to an incredibly inspiring future where they can earn so much more money whilst working a lot less.
And I guess one of the spin-offs of that is also the succession of the firm, which is certainly a biggie here in New Zealand. The idea of passing onto younger people and saying, well, have we got people lined up here to take over the leadership in the firm? And, how else are you going to learn those skills unless you've got a good mentor and someone who's capable of, upskilling the younger force?
That's it. And the only way a law firm owner can be that mentor is if they schedule themselves in to be that mentor. Rather than having all the fee earning work and then thinking, I'll have this list of to-do things and I'll pick these bits off as and when I get a space. It never happens. That to-do list will stay there forever. You need to physically get that to-do list and schedule everything in, including time with your family, time to go playing golf, time for holiday. It all needs to be scheduled in. You need to be able to stand back from your schedule and see everything that you want to do is included. Because if it's not included in your schedule, well, it's off balance and you'll never have that real joy of fulfillment.
Sounds like you're living the dream as well. You're living in Spain with your wife and your two kids. How long have you lived over in Spain now?
Nearly 5 years now. Yeah. And I live in a place called Calpe, which is right on the coast. We've got some of the most beautiful beaches in the world here. And I get to travel into London. It takes me 2.5 hours on a flight, see clients, speak at events. And yeah, I'm living everything that I guide my clients to. I've got people, being VAs in the Philippines. I've got other people handling parts of my social media. I've got everything handled by others, whilst I carefully choose the clients that I work with, so that I get to really serve them fully and enjoy succeeding alongside them, whilst I also get to live this lifestyle. So yeah, it's really important.
And you can also coach people using a platform like Zoom or Teams.
Yeah, all my clients are on Zoom and they love it because they can be anywhere, traveling anywhere and dial in with ease.
That's great. Hey, well, listen, I'm sure you've whetted a few appetites today. And so for people who'd like to find out more about what you do and how you do it and how they might benefit from basically becoming better delegators, how can they find you, Dan?
The best thing is connect with me on LinkedIn. So just search Dan Warburton, you'll find me there. And also there's a link at the top of my profile called Profitability Assessment. It's a 60-second profitable delegation assessment that will show you exactly where you stand in your skill to profitably delegate away your workload and earn really good money. And it gives you a tailored report at the end of it and an opportunity, if you like, to then book a call with me to find out more.
Great stuff. Well, look, the time flies. Our time is nearly up. So I'm just going to wish you a good day over there in Spain. I'm in Auckland for Lawfest, which happens here tomorrow. So I'm going to go and get a good night's sleep before that. But for now, I just want to say thank you very much for being our guest on Law Chat today, and all the best for the rest of this year, Dan.
Thanks so much. It's been such a pleasure. And I'm looking forward to complete reading your book.
I hope you enjoy it. All right. Well, that's it for this month, folks. And we'll be back next month with another guest. But until then, look after yourselves and we'll see you next month. Bye for now.